Hello, and welcome back to 8 to 8 Book Reviews. Now, I would first like to apologize for my absence. It's been both a rough and a very busy month. I was sick several times, somehow, and I dislocated my knee. I'm better now, though, of course. And I also just graduated high school. And the sheer amount of events and other things I have had to attend in my last month it's just been insane. So, I haven't had much time to read, much less time to review. But summer's now here, and the weekends are free again. So, I hope to be able to get back to a normal schedule. Anyway, today I have a book I read some time ago. I can't remember exactly when. I think last December. Unfortunately, the book I am currently reading is a long one, which will make for an amazing video once I'm done with it. But for now, I need to look at books I previously read. So, unfortunately, my review may not be as thorough as I would otherwise like, but I promise not to disappoint too much. As always, this review will be largely spoiler-free, although this particular book doesn't really have a plot per se, and is instead informational. Now, this small, simple-looking book, written in 2017 by Timothy Snyder, is On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century. Now, as you can see, I didn't lie about it being small. Not only are the dimensions small, just 6 by 4.5 inches, but the pages themselves contain large font sizes and large chapter headings. So, although it contains a total of 126 pages, those pages have a shockingly small amount of total content. And 17 of those pages are taken up by the opening section, of which there's a 5-page prologue. So that's 12 pages of the table of contents, the title, whatever else. The remaining pages, small though they are divided into 20 chapters, each of which is one of the lessons as mentioned in the title. I will list them here in order, as this will be relevant soon. 1. Do not obey in advance. 2. Defend institutions. 3. Beware the one-party state. 4. Take responsibility for the face of the world. 5. Remember professional ethics. 6. Be wary of paramilitaries. 7. Be reflective if you must be armed. 8. Stand out. 9. Be kind to our language. 10. Believe in truth. 11. Investigate. 12. Make eye contact and small talk. 13. Practice corporeal politics. 14. Establish a private life. 15. Contribute to good causes. 16. Learn from peers in other countries. 17. Listen for dangerous words. 18. Be calm when the unthinkable arrives. 19. Be a patriot. And 20. Be as courageous as you can. Now, all of these, on the surface, seem like reasonable pieces of advice or lessons to be learned. Granted, there are a few questionable ones, such as number 12, make eye contact and small talk, but one, or at the very least I, can still see how that might be relevant to resisting tyranny, and it certainly piques my interest of how the author would go about relating them in the book. And certainly that judgment holds true for certainly that judgment holds true for a portion of the book. But before I get into that, I need to explain a little more about the specific structuring of it. Now let's take a look at chapter 12. Right here. It has the chapter title, and then a bolded paragraph of the general advice, which is as follows. 12. Make eye contact and small talk. This is not just polite. It is part of being a citizen and a responsible member of society. It is also a way to stay in touch with your surroundings, break down social barriers, and understand whom you should and should not trust. If we enter a culture of denunciation, you will want to know this psychological landscape of your daily life. Then, after that, there is a more in-depth explanation of what it means, mentioning specific things from the past century and relating it to the modern day. This chapter is a shorter example, in one page, so it's if not the shortest example, but it still has what I'm talking about. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it mentions Nazi Germany and relates it to a potential situation in modern day USA. This chapter is also one of the few that is free from a certain critique I have of the book. Now, I'm going to let the political nerd in me come out a bit here, and I'm going to share some opinions of mine. If you disagree with them, you're completely free to. If you aren't interested in politics, well, I have to ask, why did you click on a video about a book about tyranny? Like, that's pretty political if you ask me. And if you are interested in politics, you should go check out my other channel, 828 Politics, if you haven't already. Self-promotion out of the way, I want to talk about the politics expressed in this book. I will first state that, accepting general issues found in every piece of writing, such as poor sentences or whatever, the beginning bolded paragraphs are good and valuable. There is even a specific quote from one that I especially liked, from chapter 10, "If nothing is true, then all is spectacle. The biggest wallets pay for the most blinding lights." That right there is a powerful statement about the reality of a world in which truth can so easily be bought, and it isn't bogged down by tons of words or phrases that other authors may use. It is simple, eloquent, and, most importantly, true. And then, in the more detailed explanation, the book ruins it by connecting everything to Trump. Now, as far as I can recall, the author never mentioned Trump by name. However, he does routinely mention the president and the campaign and the 2016 election. And keep in mind, this is written in 2017. We know who the president is. And really, this wasn't the book I was expecting. I remember going into this wanting a proper examination of tyranny and what we can learn from the 20th century. And instead, it all relates back to Trump. It talks repeatedly about his supposed tyrannical tendencies and how we are heading toward a dictatorship. And looking back in the year 2023, that didn't quite happen. And don't get me wrong, there are absolutely some valid criticisms of Trump to be made, and absolutely some of those criticisms involve his involvement in authoritarian politics. But to repeatedly like him to Nazis, to tie him to the likes of those who ran concentration camps, to compare his speeches to the insane levels of propaganda and control the Nazis implemented, to call him a fascist for saying things like Crooked Hillary, etc., etc. That's just not it. It's generally disingenuous and ignores not only the actual valid criticisms to levy against Trump, but is also just extremely insulting to those who witnessed the horrors of tyranny. It's making mundane the gulags and the Great Purges and the Holocaust and the rest. Furthermore, it is not even expressing such comparisons in any particularly convincing manner, simply saying that this is something we saw under tyranny. The president is a tyrant because of this vaguely similar notion in an incredibly different context. That isn't how you make a political critique, and it isn't how you discuss what we have learned from tyranny. It is a very thinly veiled attempt at capitalizing on a sensational topic and using a load of buzzwords and commonly expressed yet baseless opinions, masquerading as a philosophical and profound analysis of the horrors we experienced just last century. Okay, I'm done. That was a lot, but I think it got the point across. It just isn't a very good political book. And that's not to say it's all bad. The writing, trite though the topics may be, is still good and definitely easily readable while still effectively conveying some complex topics. It is also expertly dense in terms of information, packing a lot in what limited space it uses while not feeling overloaded. The author is clearly talented at writing, maybe more so than I am. The only, and unfortunately the biggest, problem is how they handle the subject matter. And at the end of the day, the subject matter is the single most important part, especially in a book like this. People aren't reading a book on tyranny for its prose or elegance, but rather what the author has to say about and how they analyze such complex and frankly terrible topics. And it is because of that I give this book only a 2.7 out of 10. But that really is an extremely personal take. Maybe this is the perfect book for you. Maybe you do agree with the opinions of the author, and maybe you think he makes a great case. That isn't for me to decide, and more power to you. But for now, this is how it stands. And I guess I don't have much else to say. If you have any questions or any complaints, make sure to let me know in the comments. And while you're there, you should consider subscribing, as, well, with luck, I will be back on track for weekly reviews about books of all sorts. I mean, already I've covered fantasy, Abraham Lincoln hunting vampires, really, really sad book, and of course, this thing. And there's gonna be boundless topics ahead. But thank you for watching, and keep on reading. I know I will. This has been H8 Book Reviews.